Hi, my name is Brett Latigo. I'm a fisheries biologist and I'm here today to talk about spinning reels. So this is a different type of reel than the closed-face button reel. There's some differences here. It's a little more advanced, so maybe somebody that has been fishing for a little bit, but you can also learn to use it pretty easily, and it's really not that difficult. Some advantages actually of having this type of a reel is that all your line is exposed. So the spool is here on the outside, and you can see where any issues arise. So if you have a tangle or a snag, you just have to look down at your spool and you can see and diagnose those issues and hopefully untangle them and fix them fairly easily. So some very basic parts. So you have your reel here, you have your spool, there's this metal part that goes around that holds the line, that's called the bail, and then there's also a little dial on top here that goes back and forth, and that's your drag. So that allows, depending on how tight your drag is, to be able to play fish of different sizes by letting the line come out, or you can loosen it up and then it comes out for a smaller fish. So depending on where your drag is set, you can play the fish and the type of the fish and the size of the fish more effectively that you're trying to target. So that's pretty much all you've got for setup there. There's this, a lot of times you're gonna wanna make sure that the reel is tight, so there's a button on the other side that loosens and tightens. So before you cast out, you want to make sure that's tight. This also allows you to switch it from side to side. So if you're a left-handed angler, you can take this, loosen this up and actually put this on the other side so it works toward another different hand. So here at the bottom we have some classic spinners. These just have a straight shank with a treble hook, and these little things on here will spin. So as it moves through the water, it spins, and it's supposed to imitate some sort of a minnow moving through the water. You also have these, which are known as a spoon. So you can see that they're sort of shaped like a spoon. And these are gonna have this motion as they move through the water, that they're gonna just kind of move back and forth. And these tend to be good for pike or things like that. Trout you can also use to catch them. Here we have a spinnerbait. So this is just a sort of a different version of the spinner. These are usually for weedy areas, warm water fish, not so much trout, but pike, bass, that sort of thing. And they have hundreds of different varieties and colors and styles of spinners. Similar to the many different styles of these lures, you also have these, which we call stick baits. So there's a lot of different varieties. These Rapala stick baits here are pretty standard. These are good for a bunch of, you can catch any warm water species, you can catch trout, all sorts of things like that. And you'll notice that they do have a little bit of a lip on them. And depending on the size of the lip really is gonna tell you how deep they go in the water. So something with this small lip is gonna be more on the surface of the water. It's not gonna go that deep. Whereas something like this that has a very fat, deep lip, that's gonna go deeper in the water. They also make them that you can either have ones that float, ones that stay mid-water, or ones that sink. So that's something else to consider. Some other things that we have are there's a wide variety of plastics that you can use with this setup. Everything from these small panfish jigs that'll also work for bass to something that imitates a crayfish. So this would drag along the bottom. It's got a little bit of a weighted jig head on here, and that's going to be really good for bass and things like that. Now with most of these lures, except for the plastic ones, you're going to want to use a swivel. And a swivel is there to provide the line a chance to twist. So it's important to have some swivels. They're fairly inexpensive. And you just attach that, and that's where you'd attach the hook to. So the swivel just opens up here with a little click, and then you can just take your lure, whatever it is, and attach it. The reason you don't want to use it generally for plastics is because it does give a little bit of a difference in the action of the lure. So you want something to look more natural with the plastics that's moving very slowly, as opposed to a lure that you're pulling through the water very quickly that has a lot of motion to it. All right, now I'm going to show you how to cast a spinning reel. It's not too much more complicated than a regular button closed-faced reel. It's just that rather than using the button as your trigger for the cast, you're gonna just use your finger. So first off, you want to start off with your reel facing down. So you don't want to hold your reel up like this, because then when you're casting or when you're reeling in, it's just not the natural way that your line wants to fall, because you're fighting against the way the rod wants to bend. When your reel is down, the rod's going to bend naturally, and it's going to be much easier to use. So when you start, you're going to want, maybe a couple feet of line off the end of your rod tip. You don't want it enough so that it's on the ground, or just enough so that when you go to flip the bail, you can't get it to flip because it's too close to the end. So you're going to want to give yourself some space, and then you take your finger, you pinch the line so that it's up against where the rod is, and then you're going to flip your bail. As soon as you flip your bail, there's nothing holding the line except for your finger. So if I went to move my finger now, it would fall out and there'd be nothing holding it back. But that's the goal, because when we go to cast, we need that loose line to be able to go out into the water. So bail's open, fingers pinched, back, nice cast, close my bail and start to reel. With these spoons, you can reel in fairly quickly. You'll see them spin. All right, when you catch that fish, you want to set the hook. So you're going to want to pull up, keep your rod tip high, keep the tension on the fish and try not to lose it. So you just saw that even sometimes when you do everything right, keep tension, set the hook, and keep your rod tip up, you still lose fish sometimes. But that shouldn't discourage you, because that's part of the fun. That's what makes fishing challenging, and that's what gets people excited about going out, because when you actually do catch that fish, it's going to be that much more rewarding. So even if you're losing fish, stay on top of it, practice as much as you can, and eventually it'll come around and you'll be able to land that fish of a lifetime.